Today on Let It Rip Weekend, a new push for universal background checks in Michigan.
These universal background check bills that we're introducing today will address this public health crisis for Michigan now.
State Democrats introducing new bills that mandate background checks for all gun sales, not just pistols. Republicans say the checks are unnecessary and ineffective. We join the conversation. But first, a new ordinance makes it illegal to keep guns in unlocked cars in Eastpointe. It's the first of its kind and comes after 60 guns were stolen from unlocked cars over the last 3 years. However, a gun rights group says
the city of Eastpointe lacks the authority to do this, period.
The Michigan Gun Owners Group is suing the city, calling the ordinance illegal.
We're trying to make sure that the gun laws across the state are uniform. If the legislature wants to take this up, they're welcome to do so.
But should local governments have the right to make laws to ensure the safety of residents? The debate starts right now. Yeah, good morning. It's time to let it rip. We're going to start with the gun controversy in Eastpointe. The 5-member Eastpointe City Council unanimously approved an ordinance that would ban guns in unlocked cars. First off, this guy supported the ordinance. He is the Director of Public Safety, George Rouhib is here. All right, next to him, he is the attorney representing the 10,000-member Michigan Gun Owners Group. They are suing Eastpointe. Welcome, Jim Makowski, to the show. And I think it's the first time we've ever had this. Next to him, the Eastpointe City Attorney.
Hi, Charlie.
Who's going to defend the city's gun ordinance. Bob Ihrie is here. And finally, gun expert who blogs for Legally Armed in Detroit and who's called Eastpointe's gun ordinance stupid. Rick Ector is here. All right, we'll give everyone a chance. Chief, let me start with you. Am I understanding that this ordinance, are you allowed to go into a car, see if it's unlocked, and check for guns?
No, we don't do that. That's not our job, Charlie.
How are you ever going to enforce this ordinance?
Well, what we're trying to do right now is we're trying to educate our public and go to your car at 9 o'clock at night, make sure there's no valuables, visible to the public, especially your firearm. Bring your firearm in. This year alone, we had 21 firearms stolen from unlocked vehicles. Within the last 3 years, we had 60. So it was a public concern, so we addressed it and we developed this ordinance. If you leave your firearm in your vehicle that's unlocked and it gets stolen, that you will be charged with a civil infraction, the first offense.
$350 fine.
Which it's not a crime, but it's a wake-up call. Any second or subsequent offense would be a misdemeanor and you could face jail time.
Let me get Jim Makowski here. You're suing the city. You don't like this ordinance, but are you okay with having guns in unlocked cars?
In no way are we in favor of irresponsible gun ownership, Charlie. Our position is very simple. The city lacks the authority to enact this ordinance. The right to enact this ordinance rests with the state. The city has no business doing this.
So if the state legislature said we're going to adopt the Eastpointe ordinance, you'd be okay with it?
Possibly. But the bottom line is they do not have the authority to do so. And they're victimizing people who are going to be victims of crimes.
All right, let me get Bob here. Now, he is the city attorney. You're going to be defending Jim's lawsuit here.
That's correct.
He makes an argument, though. Let's talk about the state. When you're talking about guns, the state of Michigan should be the one that should adopt this ordinance, or there'd be a state statute at that point, not the city of Eastpointe. How do you deal with that?
That's his argument. However, the state statute does not address matters of storage of guns. And because it does not address that issue, city councils, townships, villages can address it. The whole issue of whether or not the state should do it or cities should do it could be resolved in the state. It hasn't been. So the state has left that up to cities to govern what I consider to be a common sense provision. If you've got a gun in a car, lock your car.
Let me just ask, Rick Ector, you've been preaching for years since I've known you about responsible gun owners.
Absolutely.
Isn't this ordinance almost the definition of being responsible? Lock your damn car if you've got a gun in it.
Well, yeah, on its face, but see, here's the bigger issue. The bigger issue is we have so many gun-free zones in the statutes. It's really hard to comply with avoiding all of these places, and we have to stash our gun. If we try to take it to the back of the car and throw it into the trunk, now we're drawing attention to the fact that we're putting something valuable like a gun in the trunk. I think a far more reasonable solution to this issue is let's just get rid of these gun-free zones, or let's give CPL holders an automatic exemption like they do with the so-called VIPs in the state. And secondly, here's another issue. If an individual climbed into an unlocked window and victimized someone, beat them up or raped them, would we then turn around and censure and fine and imprison, give someone 90 days for being a rape because they came in through an open window?
I don't know where you were going with that, but I thought you were saying if I go to an unlocked house and take a gun, do you think the ordinance, although it's a car, but should there be an ordinance like that?
Well, there's certainly a difference between a house and a car. A typical car is, 60 square feet versus a home where it's 1,500 square feet. You can hide a gun in a home in a million places. A car, I can't even count on one hand where you can hide a firearm.
I don't think that's a valid argument. The point is that it's private property and that it's unlocked, and someone came in uninvited without permission and took some property. Okay, but that is the issue.
Don't give me any ideas. They may adopt that. They may make the orders. But let me ask you this. If I'm getting gas, all right, I don't usually lock my car, and my gun is there. Did I violate the ordinance?
No, absolutely.
No.
You have not violated the ordinance. If you are with your car, if you are in control of your vehicle, you have not violated.
So if I go in to pay
ordinance
for the gas and I leave my car there and I have my gun right on the front seat, I did not violate the ordinance.
In that case, you may, because you are not in control of your vehicle. You're in another store, you've gone in, it could be a 7-Eleven, it could be a department store. You're no longer in control of your vehicle, and you're no longer in control of the gun at that point. So that could be a violation.
Isn't that the point, though, seriously? Don't we really want, though, responsible gun owners to take, they've had guns stolen in Eastpointe and probably other cities, too. This is kind of innovative. You're okay with that?
Perhaps we should make stealing from cars illegal. That'd be a great idea.
Well, I'm assuming you'd prosecute the person that stole the gun too. So now they have two cases that come up.
There's a
but
reason,
why are you penalizing? Why are you
people.
penalizing the victim though? This is an actual crime victim, a person who's had their property taken. And you know what? The fact that you're even considering sanctioning this person is unconscionable.
Well, it's not like somebody breaking into a car and stealing a book. A book isn't going to kill anybody. A gun can kill people. And the problem is, this is an ordinance that addresses an existing and an important issue that is actually occurring in real life, and that is guns are being stolen out of cars and they are being used by criminals to hurt people and to rob them. That's the problem.
That's what criminals do.
And it's not that hard to lock your car.
Property, you know, 20 incidents of stolen guns is a problem.
If I am in Eastpointe and I leave my gun, you know, in my unlocked car, the criminal steals my gun and shoots someone, can I then, as the gun owner, be responsible for that criminal act? Because I violated an ordinance. I violated the law. Jim, what do you think?
Potentially it could happen because, you know, it's a maxim of the law that you're not responsible for the criminal acts of other people, tortious acts of other people. But with this ordinance, perhaps that could give
Bob Ihrie, is that a possibility?
I think it is a possibility.
Is that what your intent is to make me responsible for a thief, a criminal's shooting someone?
The intent of the ordinance and of the city council that passed the ordinance in Eastpointe is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the city of Eastpointe. That's the intent.
I think that's just as crazy as someone not having locked a window and someone come in without permission through a window illegally through something that was open and then commit a crime like hurt someone or brutalize someone, and then you say, well, the victim should be penalized and should be sanctioned. I think that's absolutely absurd.
That is an absurd analysis because the victim of that...
It's the same concept.
Excuse me, let me finish my sentence. Because the victim of that crime is not causing a jeopardy to the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the city of Eastpointe or anybody else.
Somebody
who breaks in and steals a gun out of a car
is no different than someone breaking in and stealing a gun out of a house.
A, already a criminal,
your point is
and B, now has a gun.
All right, Jim, you want to say?
Why don't we introduce this to the state legislature. Right now, the whole purpose of the state
But
preemption
if they
statute.
did, what would your argument be to the legislature? You said you're okay if the legislature.
I would have
it
to
sounds like a real technical argument here.
No, the
these
problem-
people in Eastpointe want to protect
I
their
got the
citizens.
solution. I got the solution.
problem
Get
right-
rid of these gun-free zones, and then we have to worry about guns
not-
being
it's a
left in
different
cars.
issue.
Yeah, how
problem
about we
right-
stick to this issue?
The
It is the
problem
issue.
is right now with this new statute, someone can park on one side of the street and be perfectly legal. Someone could park across the street, and then they're in violation of the statute.
A different city you're talking about.
Correct. The state passed a law nearly 30 years ago to keep that from happening, to keep local units of government from regulating firearms because they didn't want.
Is there any middle
different
ground here?
laws.
Because the two attorneys, you guys are both going to be arguing this case. It seems to me there is a problem in Eastpointe about people stealing guns. That's the problem. How do we address that problem? We have the two of you guys. Is there any common ground we can settle this case?
If the state legislature doesn't take it up, then there's a void at that point. Cities then must take it up. I would ask you, Charlie, to ask my worthy opposition here how hard they have fought to get a law like this passed in the state legislature if they want it to be a state statute. I think the answer will be zero.
I would ask you, how hard have you fought to find these people who are breaking in the cars and being criminals in the first place?
Well, I think you should ask the director of public
Is all
safety.
we're asking
He's
is
for
for
you very
people-
hard.
All right, we will follow this. We're not done with this topic. All right, gentlemen, thank you for your thoughts and insights. All right, don't forget, share your thoughts by using the hashtag #LetItRip on Facebook and Twitter. You may very well see your comments on the air. All right, coming up, state Democrats say that too many people across the nation are being killed with guns, so now they're proposing to expand common sense background checks for those trying to buy firearms. We'll take on that debate next.
Gun violence has impacted way too many communities across the country, from a synagogue in Pittsburgh to a nightclub in Orlando to a movie theater in Colorado, and way too many classrooms across the country. So we're here to introduce bills that promote common sense reforms to reduce gun violence in our country.
We can all agree so much gun violence in our country, but what can we do about it? Well, Democrats in Lansing want universal background checks for all people looking to own a gun. They call it common sense. So they're introducing new bills that would require background checks for all firearm sales. Right now, the law only requires checks for people buying pistols. Welcome back. All right, let's introduce right now one of the main sponsors of this bill, Robert Wittenberg. He's a state rep, Democrat, representing the 27th District, Huntington Woods. I believe you're from. Thanks for being here. Next, Senator Pete Lucido joins us again. He is against these background checks. He'll tell us why. Of course, the good senators from Macomb County, Shelby Township. And you already met Bob Ihrie, the city attorney for Eastpointe, and Rick Ector, gun advocate. Representative, let me start with you. Reasonable background checks. I actually thought that if I buy a long gun, I don't have to go through a background check. If I had to buy some other kind of gun, I don't have to. Only pistols? That's the law now?
That's the way it's written right now. So the legislation we have literally changes one word, and it changes it from pistol to firearm. So the process is already in place for pistols. And what we're saying is that it should be required for long guns as well.
So how many more guns would this bill encompass? A
As
lot of
far
more
as-
guns. I mean, it's going to be the paperwork's going to be off the charts.
Well, it's the same paperwork as that people already have to go through with pistols, but we want to make sure that if someone is going to buy a firearm, they should be legally able to purchase it. We want to make sure that criminals are not getting firearms, and so we already have it in place with pistols. We want to make sure that anyone who's buying a weapon in this state is able to, is able to buy one.
No psychological testing or anything like that?
It's the same background check that you have to go through for a pistol that you would have to go through for a long gun.
Is there any requirement that I have to take a course, a gun safety course, or anything like that?
I would encourage that.
But
I would
that's not
encourage.
the-
I have
that's
my
not what you're
CPL.
building.
I have my CPL, and so I've taken the class. We need to do more education because it is an epidemic in our state and across the country, and we have to address it.
There's not an
There's
epidemic
hold on,
of people
Senator,
shooting people
there's
with
there's no
rifles.
question about it that we've seen gun violence. We could go through every one of those. It's a tragedy in this country. A simple background check, which is just to make sure that guns don't get into the hands of criminals. You can support that, can't you?
I can support, I don't like gun violence. As the great state representative, the problem is we have gone ahead and known, if you look at the statistical data that's out there, it's the handguns. That's why we have these background checks. It's not the long guns, it's not the shotguns. And in addition, if I just own a handgun, then he's right about the paperwork. It's there, the background check is there. But what about all those that are just hunters that only own rifles to do what they do, and that's take deer down? Wait a second. At the end of the day,
are you okay with a hunter who's got a felony on his record to be hunting with a gun?
Well, hold on a second. Who said that? I mean, there's no statistical data that's going to say this is going to prevent the risk of harm to our society. In fact, to the contrary, having background checks doesn't stop people that are violent and doesn't stop people that are going to use guns for the wrong purpose. And if he says, yes, I can prove that, show me. I'm from Missouri, the show me state.
So, real quick, so there's Boston University just came out with their study that states that have implemented universal criminal background checks, their homicide rates have dropped by 15%.
Is it long guns or is it pistols? Ask the
universal criminal background checks.
Universal doesn't say if it's a pistol or a long gun.
But are you okay with
They don't go into a bank they don't go into a bank with a shotgun to rob a bank.
Are you okay with a felon going hunting with a rifle?
I don't know, Charlie, and I'll tell you why. If the felon's going there just to kill a deer, bring it home to his family to feed it, instead of going on welfare, you're damn right I am.
Bob Ihrie, let me bring you into this conversation over here.
It's hard to get into the conversation with my friend Pete Lucido. Hard to get a word in. But
Macomb County people, I get it. I understand this. But let me ask you this, though. This seems to me fairly reasonable. Can you support this type of legislation?
I'm probably more middle of the road on this issue. I just don't think that there is the data to support making background checks necessary for long guns. They are extremely, here's what legislation does. Legislation says, here's the problem and here's how we're going to solve it, okay? This does not solve the problem that we have because long guns are not used in crimes except very, very rarely. Add on that the bureaucracy that will be required, the expense, which I don't think that the bill identifies where the money is going to come from to pay for this, and the fact that the criminals who are really using guns aren't getting them legally anyway. So, quite frankly, they're breaking into cars and getting them, but nevertheless.
So you believe that people should buy AR-14s without going through a background check?
An AR-14 is just another gun that is shaped in a way that makes people feel uncomfortable.
But they shouldn't have to go through a background check to purchase one?
If they're not used in crimes, then we shouldn't even worry about it.
Let me bring in Rick Ector here. So if I buy an AK-47, what's a high-powered,
all firearms
semi-automatic weapon,
okay, fine.
you're telling me today in Michigan I don't have to go through a background check?
If you're going to buy a rifle and you're buying it from a private sale, absolutely not. But
does that shock you?
No, it doesn't shock me at all because when you look at the incidence or the rate of people who are committing violent crimes with long guns, it's not an issue.
And with
respect to all the statistical data that's been done on the states with regards to these universal background checks, I mean, the point that they're pushing doesn't absolutely hold any weight
I agree
at
with
all.
them because it's not the individuals that are going to buy guns legally that are committing the crimes. It's the ones that are getting the guns illegally by way of black market and trade and stealing of the firearms as it relates to the pistols that are committing these crimes.
But
and
this
that's
background
to
check
the point.
is only to weed out, really, if you're a felon. What else, Representative? If you're a felon,
adjudicated as mentally ill.
Mentally ill. I mean, it's a very basic.
That's already illegal.
That's by that rationale, though, people say, oh, only criminals don't obey laws, law-abiding citizens. Then why do we have laws in the first place? Do we have murder? We're not going to legalize all these other things because some people break the law.
The only thing they want is to put the infrastructure together to put together a national registry of firearms. Long guns are not the issue. The issue is that on a national basis, they're going to go state by state and create this de facto database, which is illegal on the federal level.
Trying to keep people safe.
Do you have Republican support for your bill?
We didn't get any Republican co-sponsors of this legislation, but we've talked to some Republicans who are supportive of the idea.
But it may die if you don't get some Republican support.
It should die.
And by the way, Charlie, you do have to go through a background check to purchase an AR-15.
You do?
Yes.
Well, you're not required by state law, though. You're not required.
Go try to buy one and not get a background check.
Well, sure, they might do that, but it's not required.
Obviously, this debate will continue as well. All right, coming up, we're going to hear our panel's final thoughts when we come back. All right, now it is time for final thoughts. Let's start with the Eastpointe City Attorney, Bob Ihrie. Final thoughts on these issues.
Final thoughts, you know what, from a larger philosophical perspective, everything can be justified to control us by just saying it's going to keep you safer. And that's what we see happening. Some things will keep us safer, but we have to balance our civil rights and safety and reach that happy medium that is a common sense happy medium. That's what we need to struggle to do in the legislature.
I always ask myself as a legislator, what question am I trying to answer? In this case, we're trying to curb or eliminate gun violence altogether. There is nothing regarding a background check that says gun violence will stop as a result of this. Providing information to an individual, 85% of the firearms that are sold, long guns as well as shotguns, are done by federal firearm dealers, which means they're already going through the paperwork. They have to follow federal law. To throw another layer into the state, there's a cost factor, there's a privacy matter, which I definitely don't like to see, as well as, like Bob said, civil rights. I want my civil rights protected.
Representative?
We don't think that just one piece of legislation is going to solve all gun violence in the state. But if we continue to do nothing and hope that things are going to change, that's insanity. We have to do something, and it's incumbent upon us as legislators to make our state safe. And with the Gun Violence Prevention Caucus that we started, we are not anti-gun, we are anti-gun violence. And so we are trying to push through proposals that are going to keep our state safe.
Just enacting anti-gun legislation for the sake of putting up another tally point on the board is not going to advance us forward. The long guns are not a problem, have statistically, and all the data goes to support that long guns are not an issue.
All right, that'll do it for this edition of Let It Rip Weekend. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.